the Vedas.
What's really good, all my beautiful people out there, all you good folks, all you decent folks, the folks that visit this channel, and I am so happy to have each and every one of you here. We're continuing our Vedas series. This is chapter 2. This is our chapter 2. I don't want you to confuse the actual chapter because I'm not going by chapters. Um I'm following the actual um Vedas, but we're kind of creating our own chapters because if I was to sit here and translate them as they are, it would take a very long time. um I do apologize that it has taken so long since we put out the first chapter. I am truly doing my best to fit everything into schedule. There's a lot to be translated, a lot of conversations that are still due to be out. I will do my best to speed up the process. Um, so I had a lot to say before I would read to you once again the translated version of the Vedas. We are talking about the Slavic Vedas, but again, as I mentioned in the first chapter of this new series, is that I don't like to classify what is this Vedas or that Vedas because Vedas, again, it's not a book, it's not a religion. And I really want to highlight the point that it's not a religion. All religion, everything that I have learned about religion for many, many years is that religion was solely created for control. It was solely created for political reasons, but more so for personal gains of the so-called governments throughout the ages. When we speak of ages, of course, it's a very loose term because again, what it looks like is that there was several, if you will, resets in the human story, but there was a pretty big reset. What it looks like, a couple hundred years ago. Now again, even the way our calendar has been presented to us was created more for organizing the way they run societies, if you will. Now again, I had a lot to say, a lot to discuss, but I guess I'll leave it for good for thought. Again, I just want to highlight the fact that it's not a knowledge, it's not an information. There's no Hindu Vedas or Slavic Vedas. There's only Vedas, which means to know, which means the knowing, which belongs to all of us. It's internally a part of all of us. It has always been a part of us. That has never changed. It's just that spiritually, we have been sort of asleep. And once we start waking up to our true nature, the Vedas come alive. Now, I want to just mention this real quick, that the Vedas, the Slavic Vedas are written, the latest version that we have. Now, again, in the Vedas tradition, the true knowing was passed down through the Ramchas, the Rahmane. and the Rahmana are the true keepers of um of the Vedas, the information that they were passing down uh throughout generations. And of course we get the written version, which is the latest version. So the way that it's written is, and the way I'm reading it to you is, I'm taking a part of the very beginning of how the book starts, and that is when Perun is the thunder god, if you will. Now again, when I say God, when I say gods, there's only one God, obviously, the creator. When I say gods, I don't want us to be stuck in this Judeo-Christian sense that gods are, there's a hierarchy and these gods are fighting amongst each other for who is the coolest god. That's a huge point to be made, because as soon as we step away from that understanding, maybe then we will start to grasp what, again, the knowing and what we've always known. And so again, when I'm talking about the thunder god, this is presented to us and is something that has always been a part of all cultures on earth, is that these are our relatives that have reincarnated and went further, and it's our direct lineage to the source, to the creator. We communicate through our ancestors, through our relatives, with the creator. Now again, sometimes we argue, are we gods, are we God? And again, because we get stuck in this Judeo-Christian sense of hierarchies, and that there's a one God sitting at the throne. On the right you have the sun, and then the angels, and sometimes they go, and then there's hierarchies of angels also. And I really would like to focus more on the unity of it all. So if we ask ourselves, are we God or are we gods? Well, to kind of make a point and to, give you a metaphor, I always say that, well, imagine that your cells are arguing, are they a part of your body? We know that each cell has its own function. It receives information. It refuses certain information. It could be possibly taken out of your body and exist within itself. But then the question is, how will it exist, so on and so forth. But the point that I'm trying to make is that your cells, they don't argue, are they you, right? I mean, they are you, and then they are themselves, but they are essentially you, just like the planet Earth. Are we the planet Earth? Can we, are we outside of the planet Earth? Call it a planet, call it a plane. That's not the point, but I guess you get the sense that I'm trying to portray. So we are absolutely God in that sense. But again, I always used to kind of make this metaphor that as the creation happened, and as our souls departed, as the eye projected the soul onto the material world, when we decided to partake in this great journey into the material existence to test ourselves, test our true nature, I would always make this metaphor that, imagine that the creator are your parents, and you're at the shores of an island that you lived on, and you get into this boat, and your parents, the creator, sends you off to get to know the world. And as you start to swim away, you still see your parents, you're waving to them, and as you get further and further, you start to see them less and less until they disappear. You don't see them, but you still know who your parents are. You still can remember them in full light. But as you get further, into your journey and away from your parents' house, from the island that you grew up on, you stop at these different towns and cities, and time goes by, and the further you get, and the more time that goes by, you start to forget. You start to forget the way your parents looked. You start to forget the way they smelled, the way they felt. And obviously, I'm not talking about in one lifetime, but in multiple lifetimes, right? So that's kind of how, our souls are, if you will, as opposed to the creator. But you are always your parents, right? And your parents are always you. So in that sense, we are the creator. And the creator is always us. The creator is feeling and experiencing everything through us, and as a part of us. So again, I don't want to go further into a some philosophical sayings and everything like that. So I'm going to start reading the translated version. Again, it's very hard to translate. It's very hard to translate, but again, I wanna see if we can set up like once a week where we can go through these words and figure out their meaning and everything like that. And maybe I'll write up the meaning when I have more time. But again, so the way I'm reading, the way I'm creating this series is that the way the book starts is that Perun is talking to his descendants, to the family members of the raza, the race, and it's take it as the human race. And so when you hear a dialogue, that's what's going on. But then what I did is I give you a little bit of the dialogue, and then I go into how the creation started, which is how the chapters begin in a book. So I'm hopping back and forth, but the reason I'm doing that is because if I was to go through the whole dialogue, it would be super long, and maybe you would be uninterested. So we're going to begin. This is chapter 2. I pray that you find the wisdom, you find the knowing, you find the memory of your genetic memory, your spiritual memory of who you really are, because I truly believe that the knowing will have us unified again as one human race, with all of our different races and cultures, and now ethnos and nationalities. That's what makes us beautiful, and it would be beautiful if we can celebrate one another's differences. So we begin. For all the creatures and people, the inferno seems like hopeless darkness. How crazy they are, carelessly striving to failure. But to the man who rejected madness, what can death do? Who would refuse to own by the ancient wisdom? Let him not think about anything else, as if expelling the life force from himself. Anger, greed, and delusion of the deep self, this is death, and they are in the earthly body. The man who knows wisdom, their gods and ancestors, knows that this is how death is born, and death doesn't scare him here. In his area, death disappears, just as a mortal disappears, falling into the realm of death. And asked Perun, Odin, warrior from the Harian clan, tell us, Magi, saying that doing bloodless sacrifices, people can achieve bliss, rule the worlds, the purest, eternal ones. The Vedas call them the highest goal. Who knows which he can do deeds? Now, again, excuse me for sometimes for this sounding confusing, because again, this is a translation, and this is why we will have these live streams where we can decipher this more. And I go on. Answered Odin, Perun all beautiful. Only those who have not known the great ancient wisdom they strive there, and for them retains the meaning of what is being said in the hidden Vedas, free from vicious desires, strive higher to the higher spiritual development, rejecting vicious paths of development. You live according to the laws of Rita and according to the laws of the God of the family, the one creator. For according to these laws, all worlds live on earth and all universes which he created, the great Ramcha. And they do not know death, for death and darkness have left these worlds, and light and immortality filled the beauty of their lives. And Hari, the Magus, said, many wise are bright patron, give your wise commandments to the human family tree, descendants of the heavenly family and great Rasa, for the truth to triumph, Midgard earth, and wrong disappear forever from the world of ours, and there's not even a memory left of it. Now again, Midgard is very important. It translates as into Middle Earth. Again, we will decipher this as we have these live streams and as we go on. Answered by Perun the Thunderer, Magus the many wise, and to everyone who gathered to listen to him. Know my commandments, people. Listen to the teachings of my words. Honor your parents and support them in their old age. For how will you show concern for them that children will also take care of you? Keep everyone's memories alive, ancestors of your clans, and your descendants will remember you. Protect the old and the young, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters, for these are your relatives, wisdom, and your people. Raise your children to have love for the holy land of the Rasa, so that they are not seduced by miracles from overseas, but they could create miracles themselves, more wonderful and beautiful, yes, to the glory of your holy land. Do not perform miracles of your own for your own good, but do miracles for the benefit of your family and heavenly kind. Help your neighbor in trouble, for the trouble will come to you. Your neighbors will help you too. Do good deeds, yes, for the glory of your family and ancestors, your bright ones. Help with all your might. Build temples and sanctuaries. Preserve the wisdom of God, ancient wisdom. Wash your hands after your deeds, for whoever does not wash his hands loses the power of God. Cleanse yourself in the waters of Edia, that a river flows in the Holy Land, to wash your body. Sanctify it by God's power. Establish on your earth heavenly law, that which your light gods give you. Observe your people and mermaid days. Observe God's holidays. Don't forget your gods. Burn incense to the glory of the gods, and through incense you will find favor and the mercy of your gods. Now again, this is the this is the before the chapters begin of the book. um and Perun is talking to the descendants. So now we go on as to how the creation started. As soon as the great Ramcha manifested himself into the new reality, a super great absolute, something appeared in the infinite new eternity. And since it was not what the great Ramcha is, the super great absolute, something concealed within itself the beginnings of evil. For everything that is imperfect from the highest point of view of the all perfect is relative to evil. And when the great Ramcha was illuminated by the great light of joy, the great stream of Inglia flowed from him, the primordial living light, that is his unspeakable breath. An unspeakable light poured out and sounded into something great. At that moment, when the primordial living light moved at least one peaceful part of the line from the great source of England, the primordial living light ceased to be at that moment. When the primordial living light moved at least one peaceful part of the line from the great source of England, the primordial living light ceased to be part of the one whom we people call the great Ramcha, just as the light from the Yarelo sun or a burning sunbeam is not the Yarelo sun or the sunbeam. The primordial living light drove before it the darkness of the super great absolute something, the void of divine light, and in some places it pierced it without leaving a trace. In other places it shone with the bright light. Great spaces were flooded, and a stream of dazzling light flowed further and further. This will be the end of chapter 2. And the way the knowing is passed down, and especially about the creation, it is very precise, and as we go on, the picture will the picture will fall into this, a perfect painting of what is oftentimes left out in other traditions. It's again, my translation is not so great, but this is to awaken your spiritual memory, and we will discuss it further. Huge shout out to all of you. Romaniya poet. Huge shout out to Jim Dillinger, David Voronuk, my boy Alpha, my boy Tomic. Huge shout out to Melody. Huge shout out to all the new super decent and beautiful people that have come here. I wanted to say something very important. It slipped my mind. But I guess it was meant to be that way. So we'll leave it there. Maybe we'll come back. I'm sending much love to all of you. I just remember what I was going to say. Please remember, and I talked about this before, that our spiritual evolution, we all go at our own pace. Some of us have reincarnated more times. Some have reincarnated less times. There are 4 stages of human reincarnation. I talked about it before in one of the videos. So please be patient to the sleeping ones, because they're supposed to be sleeping. And again, it's we wouldn't get mad if you were about to graduate high school. You wouldn't get mad at a ninth grader that they're not graduating high school, because they're not supposed to graduate high school yet. They're going at their own pace. That's what I wanted to say. I'm sending much love to all of you, and all of you are special. All of you are unique. I'm so glad that we have found one another. I'm so happy. This means the world to me. Our community is building